So I was catching up last week, a couple of weeks ago, with an old friend and and he was telling me about how his results had stagnated. So when I first got into the online space in about late 2022, this guy was, sort of about around 10 to 20K per month in revenue. And since then, obviously, 2024 had been 1 or 2 years, and he hadn't made much progress, not nearly as much as he wanted. He tried a few different offers. He dabbled in, a few different strategies. He'd done a bunch of stuff, essentially. And I think it's pretty safe to say that he was frustrated. So he was pretty sick of it. He was kind of tired of the shit, especially when he was comparing himself to other people in the industry. Some people like me, for example, not to be like, I'm, Bobby Big Nuts, but he was frustrated. So in the exact same time that he'd really not made much process, someone like myself would come in as a complete beginner in 2022 with just a bit of sales experience, and basically just dropped out of uni to now, our business has signed 135 high ticket clients in the last 60 days. And, like I said, I don't say that to brag or, act like I'm Elon Musk or anything like that. I kind of say that to give context to the story here. Because, many people have scaled faster than me and done things a lot smarter. In fact, I actually think probably one of my biggest strengths is just making a lot of mistakes very quickly and in quick succession. Um, so I don't really claim to be the biggest genius of all time. But the point of this in this video is really, how can two people who I wouldn't really say have any drastic difference in, IQ, they don't really have much of a difference in raw ability or, anything like that. How can they have such drastically different results? That's what I want to talk about in this video, because, one has had no change in income for, a couple of years, and then one's gone from a complete beginner to, 6 figures per month in about 18 months. So it's quite a different story. So I thought, I was thinking about this for quite a while, because obviously this is my friend, and he actually asked the question, what's so different about me versus other people? Why am I, stuck here? And why do I have to watch other people win all the time? It's a really frustrating thing, and I really resonated with it. So I thought about it for a long time. And in my opinion, there are three things specifically that have allowed me, or someone like myself, to scale very quickly. And I've seen this across myself, people in my network, clients that have done very well as well. There's a pretty clear difference between these different types of people. So the first one is something that people talk about all the time, but nobody actually explains how to do it or really goes into detail and gives context about, this is what's important and this really matters. This is the thing. And I'm talking about the amount of volume that is required to actually get results, and not only get results, but also progress very quickly. So on the internet, people really love, they kind of love to make things out to be super easy. And so you could just click on some stupid buttons on an iPad and make everything work. And that's just a complete fucking fallacy. Like, it just doesn't exist. Maybe when you, eventually get yourself in a really leveraged position, you can focus on managing your team or working through an EA or working through an operator, or, maybe you get in a really good opportunity out of the gate, and you start out in a really good opportunity. And you can do that. You can focus on really leveraged positions if that's you, and if you're either lucky or really leveraged, meaning you have a lot of money, you have a lot of backing, you have a massive network, then you can focus on doing no work and getting results. But for 99% of people, you absolutely have to force your way to getting results. You just have to make it unreasonable that you wouldn't get results, because there's something in this world called inertia, which basically means that an object in motion is going to stay in motion, and an object at rest is going to stay at rest. So what that means is that things are going to stay the way they are unless they are acted upon by an external force, and a big external force at that. So what that means is, everything's going to stay the same. You really have to push something in order for it to go. And obviously within that, I'm talking about results, life, everything around it. Basically everything that you do is going to require quite a lot of just effort and energy, and you can't really get around that. So yeah, that's kind of the way it is. I think if I was to analyze one thing that has separated people who have won in the time that I've been in the game and the people that haven't won or haven't progressed as fast, is just kind of a lack of an off switch. It's less about, I work this hard or I work this many hours, and it's much more about, this is just what I do. I think it's normal to work this much. I think it's normal to get these results. I think it's very normal that I would not do anything else. I think it's kind of normal that I would do it this way because everything else is boring and nothing else really scratches my itch as much as what I'm doing currently. And even the people that are super successful, and you might think, oh, well, they only work a couple of hours per day. They only do it that way so they can get better ideas and keep their mind fresh, versus, just not doing much work all day so they can, just sit on a beach and do nothing. It's never really it's not about sitting on the beach and doing nothing. It's always work. The only thing that you do is kind of work when you're really, really trying to crush and you're really this type of person that's crushing that hard. And I really don't mean that in like the hustle guru type way where you like you have to do nothing else but work. But it's kind of like in their being, the only thing they want to do is progress. And the only thing that they want to really get is progression and continuing forward and moving forward, if you know what I mean. So you don't necessarily have to be Kobe Bryant, but you know, what I'm saying is that if you want to change your situation, there's really nothing else to do but just put your head down and put your ass up and get after it. Because, if you hate it that much that you don't want to do it and you don't want to change, I really believe don't do it. I don't think I work that much. From the outside perspective, I work literally all the time. But this journey has been like the best thing that I've ever done. Nothing else really matters that much. It might sound like a lot of work when someone gets on YouTube and says you should do this, this, and this, but it's your life at stake. The difference between working in a job or working somewhere and making 5K per month versus people out here making, like I said, 6 figures a month within 2 years, it's absolutely monumental. And the example that I give for that is my older brother last year was in a pretty similar scenario where he was kind of in a job and then now he makes a bunch of money online, and the difference in how he lives his life is just absolutely ridiculous. It is night and day. He was hating his job and now he's like, I don't even know where he is. He's just somewhere in Europe. and I don't even know where he is. I text him sometimes like, where are you, bro? We're meant to be housemates and he's meant to be looking after my dog with me. So, if you're my brother and you're watching this, please text me because we're running out of dog food and I need to figure out, I need to figure out where he gets it from. But you can tell what I mean. Everyone fear mongers about how bad the 9 to 5 is, which is not entirely true. A 9 to 5 can be good. But I really believe that if you want to get something like skyrocketing and blasting past 100K per month, that's not something that just occurs. It's not something that just magically happens. It requires a certain trade, which I'll talk about in a second. But, with some basic skills on how to make money and just going really hard and giving this sort of trade, the upside is decent, I would say. It's decent. And I think the thing that you need to know is that just because someone might be more successful than you doesn't mean they're smarter or better than you. They just worked harder on smarter things. Like you'd be surprised how often you meet someone and they're making 6, 7, 8 figures online and you're just baffled at how simple they are. And it's not as if they're stupid, but you definitely meet them and you think, how does this person make so much? And this is not a rare thing. Like this happens quite a lot. And it's a good thing because what it teaches you is that there's very rarely a genetic limitation to making money. Very rarely, especially when it comes to making a reasonable amount of money. Like if you talk to someone who's running a crazy level business, they think 100K a month is nothing. Or not a regular, like an actual big business. They'll think 100K a month is nothing. I think, like people will say they have employees that make that much. So you have to keep that in mind. And like I said, it's not like there's genetic limitations. So for example, if you wanted to get into the NBA, you'd have to be a complete genetic freak. But to play in a recreational league and score 20 points per game, you just have to have work ethic and be kind of good, which is the exact same as getting results online. You just have to be kind of good and work really hard. No genetic freaks. You don't have to be Bezos. You don't have to be Musk. You just have to work really hard and do the exact amount of work that's required and be pretty good. And maybe that means you have to exert a ridiculous amount of energy towards one thing without quitting and without losing heart, which can be hard. That's my dog barking in the background, and it can be hard. But people around you are going to tell you to stop, and people are going to tell you that it's stupid or what you're doing is a waste of time and all this stuff. And trust me, like I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is when your family doesn't think what you're doing is worth your time and all this stuff, which I don't talk about that much, but it's real. But I suppose the thing that you have to be aware of is that even if the stuff's hard, even if, it seems like a lot of work, personally, I can't speak for you. I was way more scared of living a life that wasn't really congruent with what I wanted. So my biggest fear ever, looking back, was that I was going to wake up in 10 years and have made zero progress and not do anything that I felt was worth my time. I was really unhappy with what I was doing. It didn't really feel like, I was progressing. And like I said before, it's more about, hey, this is what I need to do to progress. Great. That's what I want to do. Because as soon as I was on this sort of path, it just felt completely right. I knew it would be worth it. I knew I could make it. I knew everything would turn out okay. And basically from there, I just kind of worked unlimited. Like I just worked as much as I could to try and get, more skilled, get content, take the right action, listen to the right people. And I think in my third month online, I made 10K, which was, it was faster than some people and not as fast as others. And it's not the expectation that you want to set when you're talking, to a broad audience, but that's just kind of what you do. And you just work 14 hours a day and that's what you do. And like I mentioned with that trade, I think the mindset that got me there was, hey, universe, give me, I want this. Give me this thing over here. And the universe basically comes back and says, yeah, we can do that. We can arrange that for you. Here's the cost. Give me every waking second of your consciousness toward the goal. Give me this many hours per day. Give me every ounce of your being, and I'll grant you that thing. Knowing that, do you wish to proceed? And I think the people that succeed just say yes to that. And, if you're where I was, where, 3 years ago, I was kind of 19, in my degree, didn't like my life. And I was watching a video that was probably like this. And I was probably thinking, what do I even do? And, looking back, it kind of reminds me of a Conor McGregor quote that I heard recently when someone asked him, what did it require to become UFC champion? And he said something to the tune of, all it took me was every waking second of my entire life for like 20 years. And then voila, it just happened, And obviously people will, they'll sit there a lot of times and say, you need to work harder, you need to go harder, you need to do this, you need to do that. And they'll tell you, just work unlimited, do all that stuff. And they don't really tell you exactly what to do. So I did write down some bullet points and I just said, send a ton of outreach with the purpose of figuring out what exactly works and what doesn't work. So not only sending a ton of outreach, but also trying to figure out how can I make this better. And then also number two is taking a lot of feedback from people who are much smarter than you. So your clients and customers and your market as well. Because people engage with things they like. And if they're not engaging with you when you're trying to sell them stuff, that's a problem and you need to fix that problem. So instead of thinking this doesn't work, this is broken, my business doesn't work, you just have to think, how can I fix this problem and give them something more engaging? And then, the third piece there is that you want to spend a lot of time iterating towards the feedback that you get. So for example, people might say your videos are boring. People might say your fulfillment sucks. People might say, I need more of this. And you can either think, woe is me, things don't work, or you can just say, hey, maybe that person's right. And then find the problem and then kind of just act like more of a white belt and attack the solution. I think for some reason people have this aversion to acting like a white belt, when in reality, if you are a white belt, why would you have an aversion to acting like a white belt? You're just kind of being as you are. And then, you don't need to kind of think of this advice as more of like a 5 cold calls, do this many things advice. It's more of, this is how to think about the work. So instead of just doing your 5 cold calls and then wanting to quit, you can figure out for yourself, when I'm doing this outreach and when I'm reaching out to people, what was their reaction when I did X? What was their reaction when I did Y? Okay, when I did Y, it worked better this many times compared to when I did X. So that means I should do more of Y and less of X. And then if you do that 10,000 times, it's like, wow, holy shit, that worked. And then you just continually do that over and over. And then you're just getting that feedback and it continues to stack on top of each other. So for example, bringing it all the way back to the context of my friend. So in the exact same time that my friend had been considering a switch to a low ticket MRR model away from high ticket, basically people around him had launched and tested 5 to 10 different things. So in my business, we'd already tested 7 different lead magnets, 3 to 4 ways of converting clients or 3 to 4 conversion mechanisms. And I guess you can kind of look at it in 2 ways. You can kind of sit around with your dick in your hand and think, what do I do? Or you can just kind of bash into the walls a little bit with a bit of humility and just try and think, well, I don't know what's going to work. Let me just figure it out. Let me just find out, what does the market say? And just find the answers for yourself. And that's basically the way I've approached everything. In the exact same time, like I said, that he's kind of stagnated and I've kind of just broken away from the pack a little bit. And like I said, the key within that is humility, because, it's pretty insane to be able to think that you can tell the future, number one, or number two, that you can look inside your customer's mind. So if you think, I'm going to just make up an idea and I'm going to think about it so much that I'm going to reach a level of understanding my customer so well, purely just by within my brain thinking about it, that it's going to work. That concept is insane to me. And I'll give you the example of, it took Alex Hormozi's company, Gym Launch, 6 months to figure out cold outreach and 2 months and 2 failed initiatives. So they tried 2 to 3 times and tried for 6 months before they got it to work. And then people will sit around and try something for 5 minutes and it won't work. And then they'll think the world's going to collapse. Or they try and read their customer's mind for weeks And then at the end, just kind of think, oh no, you know, it doesn't work. And then they'll think, oh no, what's the best offer? Or is this going to work? Is that going to work? And it's like, that's not how it works. The reason that it ended up working is because it takes 50 times to pay the tax that's required for the universe, or, whatever high power for it to just work. It's almost like there's an invisible hand or an invisible arm that stops something from working when you don't try it properly. Like if you just, try one time, it just never works. It only works when you put in the requisite amount of effort to make it work. That's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned in the last couple of years. And for example, like I said, Hormozy took 6 months and 2 to 3 failed launches for something to work. So if you think, as someone, whatever experience level you are, if you think you're better than on Hormozy and his entire team backing him with this cold outreach thing, if you think you're better than them, of course you can do it in a month. You can do it in a couple of tries. But if you have the humility to admit, hey, maybe, other people know something that I don't know. Maybe I'll just try it as many times as they do, and maybe a bit more. And then if it doesn't work, maybe it won't work. However, I'm not going to go into it with the mindset that it's meant to work straight away, because like I said, it just never works that way. And I think it's the same with anything really. Like a lot of people get stuck on what's the best offer to sell, what's not saturated. Should I, be a growth operator? Should I be an AI partner? Should I be a passive income operator? All this stuff. Should I do SMMA or whatever 10 million things they could do? In reality, like a lot of these things are just kind of the same decision as, do I want to have a pizza or do I want to have a burger? The nutritional value is 1% different, meaning that it does not matter. But, I don't want to just say that and just say, go off and make a decision. So typically when I'm trying to test something, the framework that I use is, hey, is it a completely garbage idea? Number 2, if it could work, how likely is it that it will work on a scale of 1 to 10? And then number 3, if it is worth a try, add it to my list of things and then just kind of put it on a priority list. And then, at least I can give my focus to the thing that's, already working. And then I can just, give it a proper chance. My dog was having a little bit of a win. So I thought I may as well go get her. And, hold her for a second, but I'll finish the video. Give me 1 sec. So yeah, basically to recap. So you're basically just categorizing it into, is it bad? If it's not bad, then how good is it? Is it worth me testing immediately, or is it just something I put on my list? And then over time, you basically just test one thing every now and then. And if it's a big thing, like for example, your offer, then it's how much of a priority is this? Is this the actual problem in my business? Am I just getting shiny object syndrome? Am I just bored? All of these things to go into the decision-making process. And I'll probably make a full video on that. But that's just something that you can take from this and say, is it a bad idea? Rank it from 1 to 10. And then just have a list of things based, in order of priority. And then, just focus on one thing at a time. Don't test too much stuff at once. So needless to say, whole point here is that if you want something to work and get results, then you need to force those results to come no matter what, which kind of leads me to my next point, which is that, people say this all the time, and it sounds basic, but this is honestly where 99% of people fail, and that's with consistency. So to bring it back to the context of my friend again, in the exact same amount of time that he'd been filming, a couple of videos for his course, people around him had they've been posted on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram every day, making their ads, doing their outreaches, and doing this consistently. Whereas, he would have phases of tweeting a couple of times per day, but never really stay consistent. And, he would, do a little bit of, prospecting, but never really stay consistent and never really be able to just keep doing the stuff that was making the money. So, you're doing the right things for a while and just fall off, or this happens or that happens, and never really gain any momentum, never really get that solid routine going, and never really feel those flywheel effects of, like I said, getting the reps done, and then getting the flywheel effect of constantly iterating and building on the feedback that you're getting, and getting better every day. And the sad thing is, like I said at the start, it's not as if this guy is dumb. Like it's not as if he's a stupid guy. But the problem is that hitting 100K a month is not really about intelligence, the most scalable offer, outreach strategy, or anything like that. It's really just about discipline. And the problem with that is that staying consistent is really, really, really hard. But like I said, a lot of people say that, but they don't really give you actionable steps. So what I wanted to do is just give you a list of stuff that's worked for me. So number 1 is I will work using a timer and forms, like work forms, like literally like a Google Forms, and then also social media blocking apps. So that's the best way to do it. I use a thing called, I think it's called Death Cut, I think is the name of it, or something like that, self-control. Like there's a bunch of different apps for it. And what I literally do is I'll put on a timer for 60 minutes and I'll just not do anything other than work for that 60 minutes. Then at the end of that 60 minutes, I'll just write into that form and I'll have a stack of questions like, what did you do? What's your main goal? Is there anything holding you back right now? What is your main, like, what do you need to be focusing on right now? What are the key tasks for the day? What can you do to be better in the next hour? Just simple stuff like that just keeps you accountable. Then at the end of the day and of the week, you can go and review, what did I do? What did I spend my time on? Did I get all my forms done? So for example, did I get enough work done? And then what I'll do is I'll aim to work for 5 hours per day just on focus stuff. Then if there's other stuff, so for example, client work, if there's things to review, if there's team members to manage, if there's stuff to learn, anything else that's not specifically focused work, focusing on building the business, comes outside of those 5 hours. So if I have 5 hours extra to do outside of the focused hours, then I've got 5 hours extra. If I've got 8 hours extra to do outside those 5 focused hours, then I've got 8 hours extra to do. And that's just how much you work that day. Another actionable step there is to read the book Hyper Focus to get the most out of your time. So something that Hyper Focus is big on is just removing things that prevent consistency and focus rather than trying to add in all these things with a crazy routine. A lot of the time it's better to remove things. So for example, something easy is like phone out of the room and things like that. I think another thing that I've done quite well to help me stay consistent is just test my routine. And when I say test, I mean, obviously people online are going to say, wake up at this time, wake up at that time, have a morning routine, don't have a morning routine, etc. But I think realistically, finding a good routine that you can stay consistent with is something that is really going to be personal to you. So you want to be, find something sustainable for your lifestyle rather than the one you see online. Because, finding good routine is honestly one of the biggest problems, because someone will say, hey, yeah, I'm going to work from these hours to these hours, but then all of a sudden they don't do it. There's a fracture in the routine and then everything just stops working. So it's really important that you just need to make something that's going to work. It doesn't matter if it's, working 16 hours a day. You just have to find something that you can actually stick to rather than just shooting for something ridiculous. And then from there, you just have to make it that is your minimum standard. So I really, 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 truly believe that we're never ever going to be motivated. It's like a minimum standard thing. Like you have to raise the bar of what you think your minimum is, because what's going to happen then is that you literally almost will feel disgusted with yourself if you don't work a certain amount, or if you don't do the thing, or even if you said you were going to do 10 push-ups a day, you really need to make that an absolute minimum and have it completely be unacceptable if the thing doesn't occur. So for example, if you looked at someone like, Elon Musk, he's probably going to be he's probably not going to feel comfortable unless he reaches his standards, and his standards are X, Y, and Z. And the more that you can raise that bar and have quite a high minimum amount of work, then it will be a lot better. So for example, me now, if I don't do those work forms and if I don't do all that stuff, I feel really uncomfortable. I feel like I've not done my job. My minimum job is to get that stuff done. So if I don't do that, it feels bad. So if you don't have that in place, where you have these minimum standards for yourself, it's going to make it really, really hard. So just keep that in mind. Then the third one on this is setting public expectations. So having a really, is a really big problem. People will get taken out of their consistency and out of their routine by allowing other people to get them to do stuff. So for example, if someone says go for coffee, someone says come to a party, someone says come for a beer, whatever it may be. And it's not as if you need to cut these things out, but it's a really big bottleneck if you're constantly getting done with these things and constantly getting, basically taken out of your flow by people, asking you to do stuff. And really all you need to do here is just set a public expectation. So if someone's constantly asking you for coffee, you might just say, hey, I can't work. I can't catch up during these hours. Like during the week, I can't do this. Why don't we catch up on the weekend? Or why don't we catch up at this time or this time? And it's not as if that's cutting your friend off. It's not as if that's completely ridiculous. It's pretty fair. It's just that you have to set the expectation. This is what I do. And it's kind of like what I said before. It's not a big sacrifice. It's not a big like, hey, you need to go and, cut off with your friends, become Giga Chad. It's no, I just work at that time. I just do this at that time. I just work this amount of hours. I just focus for this long. I just don't go on my phone between these hours. I am just not on Slack at 5 p.m. to this time or whatever it may be. It's just setting expectations and setting standards that absolutely do not ever get deviated from. So keep that in mind. It's going to be really important for your relationships that you set this expectation. So if you've got a partner, if you've got friends, whatever it may be, if you don't have this expectation, the friction that gets introduced is ridiculous. So for example, if your partner is thinking, hey, I'm going to text this person this much, I'm going to hang out with them this much, but you're like, no, I'm going to work that time, and there's no communication about what's the expectation, you're absolutely screwed. But if you just say, this is what you can expect from me, and then you meet that expectation, it doesn't matter how low it is, it doesn't matter how high it is, it's going to have a much better outcome. So like I said, really, really important to keep that in mind. Number 4 is the biggest one. So when it comes to consistency, It doesn't mean you have to love it the whole time. It doesn't mean you have to never feel like quitting. It doesn't mean you have to not quit or fail or fall off. It just means that the time between when you quit and when you fail and when you eventually get back up is really, really short. So, for example, if you miss your routine, for a few days, if you miss your wake up, the 40 IQ version of you is going to just let that completely destroy your week or even your month, and say, oh, well, I'll get back on it tomorrow or whatever it may be. But the 200 IQ version of you is just going to say, I'm just going to get back on track quickly. And the same thing happens on individual days as well. I know people that if they miss their wake up at the wrong time, their entire day is ruined. You really just have to be more robust than that. You can't, no one cares if you miss a day, just fix it the next day. But no one cares if you miss your wake up, just, I don't know, start doing it at 12 p.m. Like, it's not that hard. Like, this stuff really isn't rocket science. It's just having a really high standard for yourself, having a really, really high standard, saying, if I wake up late and my routine is thrown out, I just get up and fix it. I just continue. I just walk through it. It's like water off a duck's back in a way. And, a good saying for this is just one more day. I got that from Theo Von, which, great guy to learn philosophy off. He was saying something to the tune of like, I'm not going to promise you that I'm never going to drink alcohol again. And I'm not going to promise you that I'm not going to, turn into a degenerate ever again. But I can promise you that for one more day, I am going to stick to my habits. And I guess the lesson in there is that you don't need to look at consistency as a monster task that you need to stick to for 50 years like a madman and not breathe incorrectly. Oh no, I'm not going to have a coffee. I'm not going to caffeine detox. You don't need to look at it that way. You just have to look at it as, today, I'm going to execute on these tasks. And then you just do it. And then you just do it. And you're just in a season of work. And then you do that for 12 months. And then at the end of the 12 months, you're like, holy shit, 12 months just passed. I am completely unrecognizable. And then you look forward 12 months and you're like, I'm just going to do it again. And then every 12 months, you're just unrecognizable from the year before. And it's ridiculous how much you can change. So yeah, that's it's so important. I cannot even stress how important that is. And now, so the third point that I made in terms of the overall thing, circling it all back, is that, it might sound a little bit hippy dippy, but I absolutely assure you that this is the most important thing that will be the driver behind all of your results. And number 3 is going to be beliefs. And just bear with me. Don't crack the shits. So my friend was telling me about all of these offers. He was doing all this stuff. He was, trying to sell this different stuff while he was stagnating. And after about 3 seconds of talking to him, I knew exactly what the problem is. So he was always focusing on this differentiating and always focusing on standing out, offering more services, doing ads, doing funnels, doing lead gen, doing the whole shebang. But there is a problem with that. So the problem with offering more stuff is, number 1, you're going to reduce the number of people who you can sell to by trying to sell everything at the same time. So for example, it's really rare that someone who will need help, will need help with ads, they'll need help with sales, and they'll need help with all of this full stack of stuff at the exact same time. So it will happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's more rare than when someone has a specific problem. So you need to focus on specific problems. And then if you want to sell more stuff, you can sell more stuff later. But you really want to start with something simple and small, because even if you think about it, would you want to hand over every single function of your business to someone that you just met? Not really. You want to start with something small, build trust. If they have more problems, you can solve them after that. So just keep that in mind. Next, you reduce a lot of operational efficiency when you offer all this stuff at once, because you're basically delivering a different thing for every client. Because like I said, not everyone needs everything at once. So if you're just, trying to break through, you just really need to focus up a little bit. Rather than just trying to do everything, because you're like, oh, well, I can't sign that client because this client needs, this client needs ads and this client needs email, and I won't be able to sign them both if I only do one of them. And it's like, yeah, don't sign both of them, because not everyone needs the solution that you bring, and you'll have people that come through that you don't close. It's like, it seems simple, but a lot of people struggle with this. So I just want to make it really clear. It's much better to sell a specific solution, and then you can upsell stuff later. And, I've done that. I only say that, and I only have the judgment because I've done that, and I feel stupid that I did that. Obviously it's not stupid. It's very, it's kind of like a natural thing that you would think, hey, if I sell more stuff, I'm going to differentiate, but it's a little bit of a flawed belief. And then, like I said, operational efficiency gets really, really hard at scale unless you have a lot of leverage. So unless you're getting really great clients that already have a lot of leverage, and then you can basically use their leverage and leverage up yourself, get rev shares, that sort of stuff. That's, again, another video. The other problem is that you lose marketing efficiency because you're talking about all this different stuff rather than a specific problem. So when I say marketing efficiency, I mean, it's much easier to appeal to a specific segment with a specific message because you understand their problems so well. So for example, someone with really good marketing efficiency is Hamza, because all he talks about are the specific problems that he's been through at a specific type of customer, and he knows them really well. So he knows the nitty gritty little things that make them really, really, get them in a lot of pain, compared to, if you're talking about all these different things, you kind of end up broad and you don't really have that much you don't have that much juicy copy to use, and it means your content's not going to be as good, your ads won't work as well, etc., etc. And then next, it's really hard to become a full stack solution compared to a narrow solution, because a full stack solution is really high commitment and high risk. So like I said before, how much more likely would you be to give someone a little, a small taste test, rather than saying, hey, take the keys to my entire house, take my car, have my wife, take it all, compared to, just a small, can I give your car a test drive? It's very, very different. Very, very different. Very, very high trust to be able to take over someone's full end-to-end marketing and sales function, compared to, hey, can I just fix your pre-call flow? Hey, can I give you a sales call review? Hey, can I look at your email marketing? Hey, can I look at your landing page? Very, very, very different in terms of the risk that's associated with that. And when we're talking about strangers, a lot of what we do is trying to reduce the amount of risk. So if you talk about a risk reversal, think about the complete opposite of a risk reversal. Think about a risk maximization. That would be to try and take over the whole business. So don't do that. And then the next thing is that your skill set will be beaten if you're doing full stack. So if you're doing full stack solution, your skill set is going to get beaten by someone who's just focusing on one thing. So if you're trying to focus on ads, outreach, sales, and basically every function, funnel, etc., your skill set will peak at a certain level because your energy is going in different directions. Compare that to someone who's just focused purely on ads. You are going to get beaten 10 times out of 10. 10 times out of 10, you'll get beaten just because they're focused on one thing. So again, it's not about smarts. It's just about where's my energy going. So yeah, in conclusion, don't focus on a lot of stuff. What you really want to do is differentiate by being better, because, in marketing, new and more sounds good. It sounds really good to do new stuff and to do more stuff. But in reality, more of the same and just doing stuff better is way, way, way superior. So to tie a loop on that, the beliefs that he had to break was, number one, that offering more was better than offering better. And number two was that making money and standing out was super, super difficult, meaning he kind of had this belief that he had to do all this complex stuff to grow a business instead of just selling something that people want. In reality, you just have to sell something that people want and sell it X number of times to make Y number of money, rather than just, it's so complex, you have to do all this different stuff. It's not true. The next thing was that doing more than one thing is a good idea. No, it's not. It's absolutely not a good idea. The amount of effort required to win in one thing and consistently win in one thing is so high that it makes it impossible to do more than one thing. Anyone you see doing a lot of stuff, you might say, Jeff Bezos has a lot of stuff. Well, he's also got 2 billion employees, or however many employees, and a bunch of cash. So anytime you see someone focusing on multiple things at once, it's because they have a very leveraged position. So meaning they have partners, they have employees, they have code that does a lot of the work, etc. It's very, very rare to see someone being the person running an entire company for multiple companies. Very, very rare. It's not like you can be CEO for multiple companies at a time. You might be on the board of a different company or have equity in a different company or be partnered in, but it's very, very rare that you're going to be in charge and handling the day-to-day of multiple businesses. So I guess that was pretty much all I had. But the real biggest thing, like the number one takeaway that you can see in terms of the difference between someone who can blast beyond 100K a month and a person who stagnates, is there is one person who just walks through the pain and walks through the losses and doesn't even view them as losses. Because you can have failed outreach campaigns, you can have failed ad campaigns, you can lose thousands of dollars, you can make bad hires, you can have all of these things go completely badly and fail at all this stuff. And the person that eventually wins kind of just, like, they might feel the pain initially and might say, yeah, that sucked. But eventually they just kind of, that was Tuesday. Lost 20 grand on Tuesday. The guy I hired and paid 20 grand to, try and fix this problem for me. He left. Oh, well, on to the next one. Now I've got to hire someone else. And that's kind of just how it works. They kind of just continue. And again, a lot of that's consistency, a lot of that's mindset, a lot of that's beliefs, and a lot of that is just kind of how you view yourself as well. But either way, hopefully this helped and hopefully you take some actionable stuff. One thing that I would say is make sure that you actually implement the stuff that I've talked about in this video. Make sure that you don't go and do it this way. And you might think I'm wrong, but I guess if you watch this video and then just continue doing it the exact same way that you did before and don't really take anything from it, then it was kind of just a waste of time and you could have spent this time watching Netflix or something. So hopefully this was valuable and I'll see you in the next video.